And I think it helps us understand women in our lives, like our mothers and our friends and our sisters.
Oh yeah, we're looking at the bigger picture. This one, yeah.
Love you, bye. I'm like, I love you too, I guess. There is a lot of burnout and people are very unsatisfied.
But what I've loved about you is you've also come to things that wouldn't typically be where you are in life.
Chair burlesque and belly dancing, and I'm literally obsessed with it, and I'm just non-stop doing it, and it is so therapeutic. But what I will say is not drinking has literally changed my life in so many ways I couldn't even have begun to imagine. Anything that prevents me from doing what I want to do and what I set out to do, it gets cut.
Yeah.
It goes.
Well, haere mai, from my heart place to your heart place, Rea, to Heart Place Hospital podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome.
I very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. Well, we always start with how I know the guest, and so you and I met it'll be over 2 years ago now, so it was before you went to Europe.
Yes,
Ireland.
So I would have been living in Tauranga and probably either just having moved up or about to.
Just moved up, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were a visitor to Heart Place through the EAP system.
Yeah.
So we had 3 one-on-one coaching sessions together, and I remember I always did an explore call for everyone before I started, just to check that we were in alignment and what I was saying landed for you. And I remember our first conversation in the explore call, you started talking about attachment styles, and I was just like, oh yeah, we're going to get on just fine.
I just discovered them and I was just like all about learning them. Yeah, 100%. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And I thought, this is going to be great, because a lot of the work that I do is about being a guide and being a doula, and not necessarily being the guru, more walking alongside others and sharing our expertise. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be really fun. I'm going to learn. And I did. So we did those sessions and they were fun. Totally fun. Yeah.
They were really good.
Yeah.
It felt like it was very back and forth, and it was just 2 people, meeting and chatting and connecting in life. It didn't feel like I was going in and having a vent session to someone who just went, It was very engaging, and it was a great first conversation. First 3 conversations, I suppose, right?
Oh, brilliant. And that was really important for me, because I know when I first accessed help, and I always talk about this, when you are the help, it's really challenging to ask for help. I felt like I was talking to no one. Like, it was just like, I was like, what do you think? And it was like, well, it's not about me, it's about you. And I'm like, but I'm just really curious, like, what do you think? So for me, Heart Place Hospital is that safe, soft sanctuary that, you can show up with yourself. But there is also this kind of little bit of like tenderness and compassion between each other. Yeah. That was fun. And then over the last couple of years, you've been like a regular. Like, there's been a seat at the bar for Rea.
Yeah, 100%. My name on it.
Yeah, and we've got quite a crew of visitors like that. They're like, whatever you're doing, just let me know I'm in.
Yeah. Keep me posted. I'll be there, whatever it is, 100%.
But what I've loved about you is you've also come to things that wouldn't typically be where you are in life. So one of them was a year ago. We had an in-person session with Jane Catherine Severn, who's phenomenal, and she's been on this podcast. And it was about menopause, and Rea shows up in her 20s, and I was like, oh, yes, my job is done.
I'm just getting a head start, You can never be too prepared.
Yeah. Well, my biggest dreams are that we have these circles where, regardless of our chronological age, regardless of where we are, that we are, it is safe for us to show up, and that we can actually start inheriting this knowledge before we need it.
100%. You can prepare for it, and I think anything like that is about menopause, it starts, like she says, and about the cycle, it starts from when we become young women. And I think it helps us understand women in our lives, like our mothers and our friends and our sisters, more so, because you've got that knowledge of what they're going through, what you're going to go through, instead of trying to, I suppose, go from a reactive standpoint, right?
Couldn't have said it better. Exactly. And I think like being someone who is transitioning through menopause, if we'd received that inherited knowledge through the other rites of passage, so menarche, menstruation, and motherhood, then menopause, which is, this is what Jane Catherine's beautifully shared, is that if you haven't unpacked your luggage by the time you get to menopause, there's no hiding from it. So of course what's happened is there's now huge amounts of us who we're the baby boomer babies, and we're all transitioning, but we haven't had the inherited knowledge of the menarche, menstruation and motherhood. So we're actually having to unpack that, and that's definitely been my journey, and an absolute massive why I've created all of this in its MacGyvered form, because it's pretty brutal doing it all at once, and that's the whole point of having the different transitions at bigger intervals, so we don't have to do it all at once.
It's a lot to take on, all that information and all the changes that are rapidly happening, and feeling woefully unprepared. It must be very scary sometimes.
Well, the beautiful thing is that we can now talk about it. I was at the hairdresser the other day, and my hairdresser's a man, and his colleague is a man, and we were talking about temperature, and I was like, I thought a lot of your colleagues would like the temperature a bit cooler, and they're like, oh, we can't talk about that. I'm like, oh yes we can, and we're gonna now. So
you can't go in your hair. You're gonna finish my hair.
So the poor bastards had to get a big rundown, but I mean this is a big point, is that all these rites of passage are not for the woman, they're for all society. So we've got to really start turning these taboos into tadars. More tadars, less taboos. So I honour you and celebrate you for showing up to those events, and to many others that I have created.
Of course.
And just love to share with you why, and what have you got out of it, and why do you keep showing up?
One aspect is the connection that we have, right? So I think when anyone is doing anything, I think I'd like to show up. So like one of my friends became a PT several years ago, and I never went to the gym, never enjoyed going to the gym, and I was like, I'll show up at 6 a.m, half an hour from where I live before work, and I'll come to your, high intensity training sessions. Let's do it, I think it's just supporting people who you have some sort of commonality with, and letting them utilize you to become better at whatever they're trying to achieve. But I just like knowledge, and all that stuff is really valuable, and connecting with the people who are teaching that. And a lot of the stuff that you've done that Heart Place Hospital does is not just interesting to me for my own personal growth, but it's something that shows me what I could do if I wanted to become the teacher, and lead someone on a journey that's similar. Because as you say, like starting young, I think is an advantage that I have, and it's so important as women to have sisterhood, and to have support and be able to talk about these things, because we go through life with whatever understanding we have, and we may not always communicate with other women about what we're thinking, and therefore we may have these beliefs that are very probably different from reality without knowing it, and move the world with that belief.
Yeah, so you've just really highlighted you're in the apprentice phase.
Very much so.
And then I'm more in that alchemist, wisdom keeper phase. So yeah. But it's so beautiful, like like I said, despite the chronological age difference, it's just like, the banter and the back and forward, and I know you and I, like, often and this happens a lot with visitors too, people will think they'll see memes and they'll send them to me, and you're the same, I'm the same back to you. So and humour and play is really super important. So I just want to kind of go through some of the other sessions that you've been to. So I know you've done Sacred Nectar with Meg Williams and I, and other offerings that she's had as well. So so just to share with our listeners, that's around sacred sexuality. So looking at beyond what any of us were ever taught in our schooling or and most likely at home. So looking at the actual magic and the sacredness of our sexuality, which is really powerful, potent sharings, inherited knowledge, I like to call it. So there's been that, and then I know that I've done some intuitive guidance with you, and referred you to have a reading with Michelle Clark. So a galactic reading, which which was cool. And then an Akashic reading with Daniela Birch. So there's been those areas too. I know recently you came along to our solstice winter retreat. So everything, all the things, and that's so Heart Place Hospital is looking at us as a multidimensional beings. So looking at us as being sexual beings, as being human beings, as being more galactic beings, having that energetic, spiritual aspect to us, and you've been totally open to it all.
I have. I've been thoroughly enjoying all of it.
So I just wonder if you could share what some of that's been like. It's, and I think I can probably speak to this when you kind of got a connection with someone. It's like a trust thing. Like, actually, you know what? She's set me right other times, so I'm just going to go with it. Has that kind of been 100%. What it's been like for you?
Yeah, of course. I think anything that you are putting a lot of time and effort into it, and people that you're connecting with, there's a lot of value there. Otherwise, why would you be doing it, right? And there's always value in it to some degree, and you don't have to be all the way there. And I think I have a tendency to be open-minded with a little bit of healthy skepticism. And so, I find it really intriguing. And so definitely with the Akashic reading, like, oh my God, that one was next level for you away. And I think because I'd been open to a little bit of the other things, having done the reading prior, it was crazy. That reading, it was, I think we spent 2 hours on the phone, video chatting. And there was tears, there was revelations, and because she was obviously giving me a reading, but, I like to respond, and kind of help her with sort of receiving the information and how it's landing. And honestly, it was so life-changing in that moment onwards about how I was going to go about life and approach things, and still now what I'm preparing for and what's going to happen in the future. So that reading in particular was very helpful for me. And actually I read back on the previous reading the other day, and some things stood out to me. And one of the things that stood out to me was because I'd gone having felt like maybe there was like ADHD going on, and I was feeling very unsettled. And she said definitely doing something with movement would be very beneficial. And funnily enough, I know I'm dancing like 10, 15 hours every week now. And I hadn't done dancing in 10 years. And now I'm literally obsessed with it. And I'm just non-stop doing it. And it is so therapeutic. And it's just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So it's funny how things may not land straight away, but a year later or 2 years later, you start to sort of see, I guess, the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, definitely. I love supporting people to see kind of the bigger picture, you know, that kind of like, what would you tell your 18-year-old self or what would you tell your 15-year-old self? And, you know, as my numbers get up, I can, you know, and this is what I say to people, like, be really curious what this is planting, like what this is planting in your life now for what is going to be the bamboo of your future. And we know with bamboo, like, it takes ages for that kind of for that sort of first seed to pop, but once it pops, you boom, you've just got so much bamboo, like, and so I really try to be an example of to people of making sense of things will make sense, and like a really lovely practice that I love doing, I do, and everything I do, everything I share, I do. So every clinician that I refer to, I've been to, and me too. I just read back mine recently as well.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, damn girl, like this. But what a practice that I love doing so that people can make sense of things is having a journal at the front of the journal, having your magic and miracles, and the back your trials and tribulations, and each time kind of like a whatever happens, writing it in your journal, but leaving a line between each thing, and setting your alarm in each month. And it might even be, I find it's actually faster than that, can be a minute, or it can be a week, is go back and actually underneath each line is actually write kind of the learnings or the takeaways that you've got from that. So, for example, like last year and this year, I kept having flat tires in my car. So I was just like, trial and tribulation, like flat tire. And then I could go back and kind of look at like, oh, actually that was happening when this happened. Like, and each time I could actually see there was an expansion and a growth at that period. Flat tire was kind of like slowing me down and, you know, keeping me, stopping me basically. Literally. So that's a really lovely practice for people to get a bigger, wider view of kind of what's going on. So, and looking that life is actually happening for us, not necessary to us when there's all these curveballs.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good point, is that any given moment we say something, we feel a certain way, we write something down, but we don't then look back on it. It's like we've released it, let's move on. And I definitely have felt that just starting doing my own tarot readings, trying to do them monthly. You know, I do the reading, I'm using, you know, the past as reference and what I want as future. And I put all that stuff down, and I do the reading and I write what the card means because I'm still learning how to do it. And then I interpret and write my interpretation. And then there's like another column where I basically sort of look overall how I feel about it, what it means. And so I sometimes only really retain a little bit of information about it. And it's something that I have been meaning to incorporate into going forward, which is to maybe take a photo of the page and have that there for reference for the whole month. Because once I've released it and set the intention about what I'm prepared for, because that's what I do it for, to prepare for my month, I don't often look back on it. And I did it the other day and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot that this came up. You know, like it was like a monetary thing. And it was like, it's going to be difficult monetary wise. And I was like feeling a little bit that way, but you know, you sort of go, yeah, I'm feeling that. That's true. And then it really landed later. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot that was in there. and how much now that information has changed my understanding of it now looking back.
Oh, that's so cool.
Which you don't normally do, I feel like, you know?
I love suggesting or inviting people to find a parts partner in those situations. So I've got one, every month we do that and then we share it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we do our analysis and we actually share it, and then next month we share the next one, but we look back on the previous month.
Yeah.
So I call them
clever.
parts partners, and then I've got a couple of others as well that we use an app and we live journal. So we'll do a big download, blah, 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 and they will come back and witness. Say, oh, I noticed this or I noticed that, or would you like me to comment on this, and sort of really invite and then reciprocate. So it's a really powerful tool to have that parts partner, that witness and celebration.
That was the word I was thinking of, literally, was on the tip of my tongue, is having someone be able to witness you and to some degree hold you accountable, because you've actually got someone who is aware of what you've set out your intention to be and how you've said you're going to behave. And usually it's your partner, right? Which sometimes can be difficult if your partner's always
Sometimes
the
can
one
be difficult.
holding you accountable.
Yeah.
I have a person in mind for that.
Yeah, cool.
I do.
Yeah,
I have
cool.
someone who I think would benefit greatly from that, and someone that I feel safe to have and share that with.
Yeah, cool.
Very interesting.
And the other thing that's downloading for me as we're talking is a lot of people say to me, how do people find Heart Place Hospital?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, actually, to be honest, mostly it's word of mouth. And you've
Right.
been great at that.
Oh, have I?
Yeah. So I know your role currently is in recruitment.
Yes,
And it's in the health sector.
Yeah.
And I've had some amazing nurses come through going, I was just talking to Rea and she suggested I contact you. And the beautiful thing is that they're now taking up all the opportunity.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That is
So
lovely to
I just
hear.
wanted to feed that back to you, that there's been reciprocity. Yes, yeah.
It is a bit of a random one, I suppose, because obviously you have a reason for calling, these people, and the idea is obviously to help them find a role that they're going to be happy in. And you're right, sometimes, because often in sales or often in recruitment, your intention is to connect with someone to understand why they're moving. And as a part of that, you sometimes get chit-chatting for a little bit on the phone, even though that extra time taken doesn't directly correlate to a benefit for you and is probably not necessarily the wisest use of time in terms of doing your job. But I think it is really important to get to know people, and I have people be like, oh my God, we should get coffee and we should go get a drink and love you, bye. I'm like, I love you too, I guess. And there is people like that where they start talking about their experience of the healthcare industry, and it's definitely something I've noticed, which is there is a lot of burnout and people are very unsatisfied, and there seems to be a lack of care in a place that is all about care, which is bizarre. It's like, how are you putting these systems in place that are so rigid and in this headspace when the whole point of this is that you're in this field because you care about people, you love helping people, and it's more about all these other things than the care and the empathy. The capacity for that goes out. And so finding a job for people is a really stressful thing because they want to be appreciated, they want to have the energy and the capacity to give, right? And so as I'm talking to these people, I'm getting little inklings of their personality and some of the things they're saying, and I thought, oh, do you know what you would love? Is I've got this amazing lady who I met, and you should look at this place called Heart Place Hospital. They care for carers, and it's, I get talking and they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'll text you it now. I'm texting them, stay on the phone. And so it's nice to hear that they have taken that.
They have, yeah.
And actually gone out of their way, because you can spread and you have no control over whether someone takes it, and you can't take that on yourself to have that be your responsibility, which is what I'm learning. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, it's totally
I'm
worked.
so glad.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, and I brought it up at the beginning, like when you are the help, it's really hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It's a big part of Heart Place Hospital is is obviously supporting as many people as we can to heal their boundary wounds.
Yeah.
So if we can get one person who's then in front of a lot of people, then we can spread that, which is why we've loved working with you. But also to advocate for yourself and others. And so I've been asked a lot of times to be a referee for someone getting a frontline role. And it's so interesting. So that the employee will ask all these questions, and then I will turn around. And then I would advocate for them. And I'm like, so what do you do to care for them?
You're asking them for a reference.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I don't want to be putting this person in the wrong hands.
Exactly. And there's kind of, there's nothing in it for me, but there is, because I want our caregivers to stay in New Zealand, and I want them to stay in the roles that they love, and that's where the third part comes in, is actually supporting them to craft a life that best suits them.
Yeah.
So that we're not all living this life and having to choose mediocre and having to choose our paycheck over our health. But it's a really curious reaction. 100% of the time, they've kind of, you can sort of almost feel this kind of like, what?
The power shifts a little bit.
What do you mean? Good point. Like this, So I think, as a system disruptor, as an earth shaker, and a change maker and a chain breaker, it's really important that we are from our heart place, actually just giving some of these systems a bit of a challenge, and see things from a different perspective. And I know like one nurse, she went into a role and they had convinced me that they were going to be quite caring, and that wasn't the case at all. And so that was quite a recovery, and her out of our front line for some time.
Right.
Silver linings from the lead. She's now in a great role that keeps me sitting here going, in the best role. This is the best. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I think. So I think it all kind of correlates. That partner side of things, and being able to advocate for yourself, but for others too. Yeah.
That's good. You obviously genuinely care about not only the words that you're saying that's hopefully going to lead them to an opportunity, but what that opportunity is.
Wow.
Which is a part of being a reference. If you're advocating for someone's ability to show up at work, you hopefully had an environment in which they were able to do that, and therefore, if you're helping them, you want to help them.
Yeah. Definitely.
So it makes sense that you're extending that further, which is great.
Yeah.
And the people who, when I'm doing reference checks, go, so out of curiosity, what's the role? And okay, they get a little bit curious. They're like, what are they going into now? And I do sometimes get the response, like we do ask, would you hire them again if you had the opportunity to do so? And it's always like, yeah, if I knew they were looking, I would have taken them before you. And I'm like, that's always a good sign, when someone doesn't want to let them go,
Absolutely, yeah. I always think of this meme where there's a patient in bed in hospital and they yell out nurse, and then the nurse pulls the curtain aside and she's in bed next door going, I'm here. And that's the world that I would love to see, that we're not having to do tertiary care for our carers, that we can actually do preventative care for our carers. So we can keep them in their roles. Yeah. So what next for you? What's Dancing Queen?
Yeah. Oh man, that is a good question. What's next for me? I think a lot of things, to be fair. The dancing thing is definitely something that I see as more than just a hobby. And I'm very prepared to spend a lot of hours for a lot of time doing it. So I think we're coming up on 6 months dancing. And it's salsa, bachata, and then random other things, chair burlesque and ballet dancing and different variations of the other styles. But I'd like to get to a point where I can teach it Because I think when you have to teach something, you usually have to understand something to a different degree for when you're learning it, right? When you're in the receiving end, because you have to be able to verbalize it and you have to make sure you're describing it correctly, and to have different people learn in different ways. So that's something that I look forward to. It's a long way away though, but just being aware that that's the direction I'm heading in. And so if there's things I can do now to get to that place. But I also just want to have fun with it and, meet people through it and do that. There's also some ideas percolating about podcasting. It's definitely my medium.
You're a natural.
I'm doing podcasting every day, but no one's recording. So yeah, it's definitely something that I've been talking to with some friends, and definitely probably what led me to this and things like that is trying to understand what that looks like for what purpose is still in the creative aspects. But yeah, I think the more I talk about it and the more I let people in those idea stages, if I'm careful to who I pick when I describe an idea, or even if I communicate like, hey, look, this is what I need when I share ideas, is I need you to be full in and go, that sounds amazing. I would love to see you do that. And I can go, yes, okay, I'm going to do it now. That's opening a lot of doors just from talking about it. And people coming to me like, hey, are you doing the podcast yet? And well, they're like, do you know what I think you should do for the podcast? It should be this. Or we should sit down and we should do a brainstorm session.
Yeah.
That's coming up a lot too, which is super interesting. And I was asking a couple of people, because when they said podcast, I was like, ask my friends what they would like to hear from me, how I add value when I speak. And so I screenshot all the responses. And it was so nice to hear what everyone was saying. And when I reached out to someone, I think she misunderstood, because I think she's starting a podcast. And she goes, yeah, come on the podcast. I'll get you on. We'll talk about life and we'll do this. I'm like, wait, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. So now, it's just funny how things sort of happen like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a lot of things. I think the interior design stuff is still very much in the forefront of my mind. Having done the course on it, I still want to get involved with that. It's something I've always loved doing since I was a little girl. So that's something I'm thinking about job-wise, I think would be the easiest transition, because it's something that I can build off and leverage off my existing experience with. So definitely interior design. And then I think overall, somehow being involved with Heart Place Hospital and eventually becoming someone who can offer something back, that would be really good. I'm hoping that maybe because of doing a lot of things, singing, dancing, drawing, writing, reading, all these things will turn into something.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, we're looking at the bigger picture. This one, yeah. And I think because I introduced you to human design, and we know that you're a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
It's very obvious to me. And we love mani-gens because they love a variety of things.
Yes.
And it's a really good for a long time in society, it was like, do one job and do, and what about your CV and all this, whereas you mani-gens are coming through and dispelling all that, so we're loving that. I know something else that's been a big shift for you in the last sort of 6 to 9 months as well is sobriety, and I just wonder if you could share a little bit about that journey, because it's more and more people are becoming sober curious, and it's interesting, we're filming this in July, which is a lot of people are doing dry July, which
of course
I always sort of get a bit activated by, because raising money and not drinking for a month for a cure, when the number one carcinogenic is actually alcohol. So but I think that's really important that we actually share that message, because I don't think a lot of young people who are discovering alcohol actually realise, I'm actually drinking a toxic product here. But it's just been so normalised and it's so available. And then just in our village alone, I think, gosh, we've got about 7+ places you can buy alcohol. So yeah, I wonder if you could share a little bit about your sober journey. Yeah.
Well, disclaimer, it was my birthday yesterday, and I had mentally prepared to my birthday.
Yeah.
So I think it's 9 months next week.
Yeah.
And I hadn't planned to drink, and I'm a little bit peeved off, but my friend showed up with a bottle of Moët.
Yeah.
I thought, why would you do this to me?
I call it sober curious. I really do.
So last night I drank, and I can honestly say, having spent 9 months sober and last night drinking, I will never drink again.
Is that right?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to get to about a year of sobriety, and maybe I would just see how I feel. And I kind of had said and been saying, maybe I'll just not drink. I 100% have no intention of drinking again.
Wow.
And it's not like that feeling where you feel like, I need to take a bit of a break.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I actually get nothing from this, and it only takes. And I definitely, when I've heard people talk about sobriety, a little part of me, the rebellious, non-conforming part of me is like, oh my God, so lame. Okay, whatever, like, how boring are you? So I completely understand when we talk about sobriety that's going to almost switch off a lot of, the brain power for a lot of people. And I definitely not want to be in a position to harp on about, don't drink, and it's not the case, because it's not like that for everybody at all. But what I will say is not drinking has literally changed my life in so many ways I couldn't even have begun to imagine. So I guess starting off, I just randomly one night, I was thinking about, I guess, alcohol in the system, and I Googled, how long does it take for alcohol to leave your system? And it said, like, after a decent amount of drinking, let's say a Saturday night, you go out till 3 a.m., 72 hours. So I was thinking, gosh, that means I'm drunk and then affected by alcohol probably until about Wednesday morning, give or take, which means Monday, Tuesday showing up for work, I'm not at, best form. And so realistically, if that's 3 out of 7 days, it's about 40% of my life that I'm either drunk or affected by being drunk. I thought, I don't want to spend 50% of my life negatively affected by that. That sounds insane to me. And that's 1 day of drinking. And so I thought, okay, well, at least I want to be healthy twice as long as I'm affected by it. So I thought, okay, 2 weeks. So then I'll just drink once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, maybe I should take a bit of a break, right? Then it was 1 month. And then this is like November. So I'm thinking, but it's Christmas. Christmas is coming up. And then New Year's is coming up. What if I fly and I go to Europe and I want to, drink cocktails? And just realizing how ridiculous I have to drink. But it's New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Just have champagne. I'm like, well, what is it about the drinking that I feel I need to do? And so it was about reframing each inclination to drink. So why do I feel the need to drink when I'm at the airport? Why do I feel the need to drink when the drink's free? What happens when someone gives you a free drink? Don't want to waste it. It's only a drink. And so I had to go through and I had to think about all these situations in my life that I would feel inclined to drink, and I had to change the thought and understand why I even felt that way. Then what I had to do is go through and go, well, what am I going to do instead? Because relying on having impulse control in the moment is not my forte.
Yeah.
Definitely, you get flustered, they're asking you what you want to drink, you're like, I'll just get the red wine, I don't know. And so I had to come up with a plan, and I honestly got stumped when it got to steak. Steak and not having red wine, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I came up with a plan and I did some Googling, but now I'm so prepared that when I go out, I get a mocktail. I don't taste the difference at all. So I still have a special drink.
Totally, yeah.
I realized that drinking was about 10% of the enjoyment of everything that was circulating around drinking. And when you took the drinking away, I still got to have my little rituals, still get to have a nice drink after work. I still used to cheers with my friends, still get to make a nice cocktail, like mocktail with, fruits and flavors. And I still get to go out and socialize. And I still would go out till 3 a.m. I was out till 3 a.m. on Wednesday, 1 a.m. Thursday, and then last night till 2 o'clock. And aside from this morning feeling a little bit not great,
Yeah.
that was the first time I felt like not good after waking up and not feeling like I could do things the next day and go out and like enjoy a walk in the sun instead of hiding behind my curtains, eating junk food, feeling sorry for myself and feeling a lot of anxiety about what I remember and what I don't remember and trying to guess. And it really changed things for me. And I was talking to a colleague of mine and he says two things that were just crazy to me, and I used to think the same way. And he goes, I had the most amazing weekend. I said, oh my God, did you go to that thing on Sunday you were looking forward to? He had a card tournament. He was absolutely dying to go to. He goes, no, I didn't make it to the card tournament. I went, why? He was like, oh, we went out on Saturday night and it was such a good night and I just didn't feel like it the next day. I was like, you were really looking forward to that. And I realized how many times I cancelled on things the next day that I genuinely wanted to do. And a friend of mine said to me not that long ago, he goes, anything that prevents me from doing what I want to do and what I set out to do, it gets cut.
Yeah.
It goes. It goes immediately. And I was like, that is so interesting. And then I said to him, okay, well, the night was really great and you don't want to go to Sol's tonight with me, which, you know, you've cancelled on. How was the night? Tell me about it. He goes, okay, so I remembered the first bar, but then I blacked out and I have no idea what happened the rest of the night. He goes, that was the best night of your life, supposedly. You've cancelled all the things that you were really genuinely looking out to do and you don't even remember it. If I told you, hey, give me $300, I'm going to give you the best experiences of your life. But the only condition is after you've had the experience, I'm actually going to remove your memory of it. So you only remember about the first 10 minutes.
Plus you'll be 300 less off.
And then you'll feel shit the next day. And I don't know how I thought that. How I thought that was totally fine. And now it's like crazy to me that I felt and spoke that way and bragged about that. I had such a good night, I don't even remember it. Like, why is that a brag?
Such programming, eh?
It's bizarre to me now.
But you think about what we've seen on movies and possibly seen a lot of our parents or people that we've grown up with, the behaviour. So yeah, it's a curious one. That's why I call it sober curious.
It feels really good. Aside from giving me all the energy to do all these other things that I never had time for.
Yes.
And aside from all the health benefits, which there are many, I think the biggest thing that it's given me is I actually do trust my judgment now. And I feel like I have discipline that I didn't ever have. I talk a lot of talk, but to be able to sit there and go, actually, in that moment where things are tempting and you may feel like you're missing out and there is a habit and a bad relationship that you have to something, that you can take it out of your life and stick to that. And that's given me, I think, just something that nothing else could have given me. And I think it's probably similar to how people feel about training and going to the gym, you know, expecting to lie in bed and wait for the feeling of motivation to get up and go to the gym. It's not how people go to the gym. They get up and they put their gym clothes on and then they fill up their water bottle. By the time that it's time to go, they're prepared and they're ready and they go for it. And then they feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
Oh, such wisdom.
I just think, thank God. I mean, you know, growing up, I had very heavy drinking parents. My dad is still a really heavy drinker. My stepmom's a fairly heavy drinker. My stepdad was an alcoholic. He started drinking again, but obviously not to the same degree. And my mum stopped drinking due to health issues. And I just think, thank God I'm no longer continuing that cycle. And it's been in the family for years. And the behaviour that people have when they are drinking and the decisions they make that feel inauthentic to how they would have behaved if they hadn't been under the influence of alcohol. And there's a lot of shame with that for me, decisions I made and calls that I did and people that I hurt, especially being very self-absorbed and not conscientious of how your words and your actions are affecting people in the moment. And I'm just glad that I'm not that person. And then anything that I do, that I say, I have full accountability for because I'm not under the influence. So there's no getting out of it too, I think. Sometimes we use alcohol. It's like I was so drunk, I'm not normally like that. And you excuse away your behaviour because you were affected by something. You can no longer do that anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have an excuse.
Amazing, yeah, amazing. So yeah, I mean, the alcohol we've used to numb our feelings, and but I mean, the beautiful thing is that you've invested in other spaces that you can feel the feelings. So through movement, through accessing support that Heart Place Hospital offers, and so you're not needing that crutch. Yeah, it's beautiful. Oh, I love it.
It is a crutch though, is it not?
Yeah.
I think it's easy to understand, and there's no shame in people who drink. Even now, I'm like, drink, go for it, who cares? Especially if it doesn't have a negative effect on your life. All in moderation. It's about balance. You don't need to cut it out just to cut it out, you know. But I definitely, you know, I get it. I 100% getting it, because when you drink, you're not in your head. You let loose. You're not anxious sometimes, although you are more the next day.
Yeah, totally.
Which makes you anxious the next time you go out, so you drink again. So it's like a perpetual cycle. But yeah, I get it. I totally, you know, that feeling of being in a dance floor, being out of it, and just dancing and moving. I understand that romantic feeling. When you take out the alcohol and you realize you can still dance. And
like no one's watching.
And hopefully, you know, if you're drinking to cope with something, well, then you know that there's something else underneath all of that. And you'll never uncover that and work on it and get better at being less socially anxious and less out of your head, which is something I struggle with as well, is overthinking and overanalyzing. Being super conscientious of how I'm being perceived in live time is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's super exhausting, and I understand wanting to turn that off.
Yeah.
And not wanting to put the work in to do that necessarily, or wanting to but not knowing how.
Yeah.
And I think this is why places like this are really important, is when you have a resource, you're no longer alone, and you actually have the tools. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
Don't know what you don't know.
I love that. Yeah, we love a static dance here at Heart Place Hospital. So
I saw that coming up.
Yeah, Sean's a DJ there, and it's I just, yeah, and same with, you know, sacred sexuality and looking at all our archetypes and looking at all our transitions. It is about getting out of our head and into our bodies, because that is the vessel that is carrying the essence of who we are. And I'm so excited to see your bigger picture. And I'm so excited for others to hear this podcast of what is possible. And I'm so excited. I'll be listening to your podcast for sure. And so yeah, I just love to end by, I don't want to end.
It's already been that time.
I want it to be the Jackie and Rea show.
We could go for hours.
Yeah, totally, we could. Yeah, we really could. We could have many parts to this. I mean, literally put us on TV. You know?
Oh my God, I know. Why am I not getting knocks on the door? This is ridiculous.
What is going on? But what I love to end is what's coming up in your heart place right now, and for others to hear. And yeah, and also, I mean, you never know, because maybe someone does want to reach out to you. So how can they find you? So what's coming up in your heart place right now to share, and how can people find you?
In terms of finding me, first
through me,
right? Well, yeah, through you. But I suppose, like, what's that? You know, when you're going through something and you think, I should probably call someone, and there's that feeling of like wanting to reach out, and just feeling like, whether it's 1 o'clock in the morning or maybe it's a working day, and you give yourself 100 reasons why you shouldn't call your friend. Maybe I could just figure it out myself. Maybe I'm being ridiculous. They're probably busy. Is it even big enough to call someone over? And you, or maybe you don't even know, you don't have anyone to call. Maybe there's someone that you don't know enough, you don't feel comfortable enough, they don't know enough about you, or it would be so random to call them. And I think in those moments when I feel that way, which I 100% do all the time, last week, you know, I call my mum. and her being that person for me has been incredibly valuable for who I am as a person. And I want to be that person for others. And I say this to people I've fairly known, that I've become friends with quite quickly. Don't hesitate to reach out. You are not a burden. And actually, you'll be giving me something, because I love to show up for people. And I think most people do. You love it when someone calls you and they come to you for advice, when they come to you for comfort, and you feel like it's something that you say is adding value, like what you have to say is important. You love helping people. That's why people do it. It feels good to help people and to get thanks and praise for that. And giving people the opportunity to show up for you. Happy, sad, for your birthday. Okay, it's my birthday tomorrow, so if you want to hang out with me, you can do that. And then they surprise you and they go, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to bring cake.
Yeah.
And so I think allowing people to do that. So I want to, I guess, be that for other people. I want to, one, hopefully motivate people to, if they're thinking about making a change, it's really hard to implement, to know that it's possible in lots of different ways. And a lot of the time it's a change of perspective. And I'm very good at helping change perspectives. I'm a path disruptor, I like to say it. Whatever path you're on, I'm about to come in and I am about to totally blow your mind and say some stuff that you probably wouldn't have thought about it that way. I'm an analogy queen. We love an analogy.
Sorry, we do.
We love an analogy. And so, yeah, obviously I just want to be that person. Whether you are watching the listening to the podcast, watching it, you've want someone to reach out to, someone who maybe is more relatable to you in age, or someone who is more than happy and loves being of service to others. I think it's just really important, because we want to learn and grow. And if you're in that position where you want to do that and you're prepared to take on the feedback and use it at any time, then go, reach, ask the question, message me, message you, reach out, ask for it, and you will be surprised what you'll get.
Beautiful. Love it. Oh, thank you so much. Fun. So much fun.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I can do my first podcast.
You're welcome. I'm good at popping cherries, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.